this is Angela from Natural Living Alchemy. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be making pectin stock out of apples, and specifically crab apples, but you could actually use any unripe green apple that you want. What is fruit pectin? Well, pectin is a carbohydrate that is primarily found in the cell wall of plants, and its highest concentrations are in the skin, the seeds, and the core of the fruit. And this is why we actually are not going to be peeling, seeding, or coring any of our apples before we use them. But basically, pectin is just the glue that holds the cell walls together. All fruit actually contains pectin to varying degrees, and these levels actually vary with the fruit's ripeness. So barely underripe or just ripe fruit has the highest amounts of pectin, and overripe fruit has the lowest. But we can find the highest concentrations in tart apples, crab apples, as well as the white pith of citrus peels. So pectin is broken down by enzymes into peptic acid when the fruit begins to ripen. And this is why an overripe apple has less pectin than a just right apple does. But why do you need pectin? Well, when it is combined with sugar and lemon, pectin will create a gel. So if you are making jam with a high pectin fruit, you might not actually need to add the extra pectin. Now I'm going to invite you to check the description box below this video, and in there you're going to find some things. You're going to find a link to the full written blog article that goes into more detail. I do give some lists on some high, medium, and low pectin fruits, just so you can kind of see maybe where the one you're using is going to fit. We do have three main sources when it comes to choices of pectin. So first off are our commercial options. So you can get pectin in regular strength, we'll call it, which needs quite a bit of sugar. You can get low pectin and low sugar pectin, and then you can get no sugar to low sugar pectin. Okay, so those are our options there. You could also just add high pectin fruit. So you would take maybe your crab apples, which are high pectin, and strawberries, which are low pectin, put the apples with the strawberries, and you would have enough pectin to make your jam or jelly. And last option would be making something like this, which is our apple pectin stock. And this is made from just apples and water. The equipment that you're going to require to make this pectin stock would be a knife to cut up your apples. You're going to need a large, heavy-bottomed pot, a strainer lined with some cheesecloth, and a bowl to kind of catch all of the liquid you're straining out of your cooked apples. You're going to need 6 half-pint mason jars because that's how much this recipe will make. And then you're also going to need a canning funnel and a ladle, as well as a kitchen knife. Now, the ingredients that we're going to require is just 5 pounds of underripe apples, coarsely chopped. We're going to leave them with the peels and the skin and everything together, and 10 cups of water, or just enough water to cover all of your apples once they're in your pot. Now, because I am doing a total of 10 pounds of crab apples, because that's how much my tree gave me, I decided to kind of just break this in half. So what I did is I prepared these ones yesterday. Now, you will see in the little video that I have going, I did change my pot about partway through because I realized that this one was not big enough for the original 5 pounds that I needed to do. So make sure that yours is definitely big enough, because once it starts to simmer, we don't want it splashing all over our stove. So what I did is I just took each of my apples after I washed them, and I just cut it into quarters. And then I found if they were too big, I just kind of cut those quarters in half. So I ended up with 8 pieces from the apple. Okay, so once you have everything cut, you're going to put it in your large pot, and you're going to add enough water to cover the apples. And mine took about 10 cups. You're then going to turn your pot on to high, and you're going to let it come up to a boil. Once we are boiling, we are going to reduce the heat down to medium, and we are going to allow it to simmer for 40 minutes to 1 hour. Once that is complete, you are then going to take a strainer in a bowl, and then you're going to line your strainer with cheesecloth and you're going to pour your apples in it. Then you're going to just allow the bowl to sit in the fridge. Now, I did make a smaller one after I kind of drained a lot of the initial liquid out because that big one would not fit in my fridge. But you're just going to want to allow all of this to just hang overnight in the colander. Now, if you want, you can definitely squeeze some of more of this liquid out. You can definitely do that. I personally feel like I have enough that I'm going to just skip that step. So once we have our liquid all drained out from our apples, what you're going to do is get your pot, and we are going to put our strained pectin stock, into the pot. Okay, so what we are going to do now is we are going to take this pot and put it on our stove, and then we are just going to simmer this until it has been thickened and it is reduced by half. Now, this is where our butter knife comes in, because what you're going to do is we're just going to take the knife and we're going to put it in the pot. Okay, and now we can see that we had about this much liquid in the pot. So what we're looking for is about half of that to be left. And this knife is just an easy way that you can monitor how much has been boiled out. So once this has reached the appropriate consistency, I'll be back to show you how we test it. Welcome back. Our stock has now been reduced by about half. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this, but we started about of a measurement here, and we are now here. So to me, that is about half gone. So what we're going to do before we put it in our jars is we are going to test it out to see how our pectin is, to see if it's going to be strong enough. Because if it isn't strong enough, we're just going to have to put this back on the stove to just allow it to simmer a little bit longer and reduce a little bit more. Now, time-wise, I want to say this took about 30 minutes. Okay, I'm just going off of the other timer I have for my other apples, which I started processing while this was simmering down. So enough of that. To test this, you're going to need 99% rubbing alcohol. Now, keep in mind, once the little bit that we are testing is just going to be thrown in the garbage. We are not going to be consuming anything that has denatured alcohol in it. So we are going to start by putting 1 tablespoon of alcohol into a cold bowl. And then into that, you're going to add 1 teaspoon of your pectin stock. And we're just going to put it in the bowl. And then we are just going to stir it with a fork. Now, our pectin is pretty much, let's not drip this over our bowl. But anyway, this is a good sign. Our pectin is kind of globbed up on our fork, and this is telling us that our pectin is nice and strong. So now it is time to put it into jars. Now, as you can see, I just did fill 5, not the 6. That's okay. I just might not have had as much water in the beginning as I thought, or I lost too much during evaporation when I was making the juice. Either way, it's fine. I ended up with 5 half-pint jars. So what you're going to do is you have a couple different options here. Without dumping all these on the floor, you could just go and put these in the refrigerator, and you're going to use it within about 5 days. Or you could put them in the freezer. Make sure that you do have freezer safe jars that you would be using at that point, because we don't want broken glass by putting these in the freezer. Or, so freezer for 6 months. Or what I'm going to do after everything is done processing is I am actually just going to can these. I'm going to put them in a water bath. You want to make sure you leave about 1/4 inch of a headspace on the top, and then you want to process them for 10 minutes. After they have been processed, you want to just check the seals, make sure everything is nice and secure, and then just put it in a cool, dark place for up to 1 year. To use your homemade apple pectin stock, you would use 1 cup of stock for every 2 cups of sugar is going to gel 3 pounds of low to medium pectin fruit. We have now reached the notes and substitutions portion of this video where I tell you how you can customize this. So pectin stock can be used in any dish that requires gelling. So we could use it in soups, puddings, as well as in sauces. Now, you could just use apple scraps or apple peels or seeds or cores when you're making another recipe that contains apples. For example, say you're making an apple pie out of delicious Granny Smith green apples. Okay, well, you would have a lot of peels and cores after you were done making your pie. You can use those scraps to make your own apple pectin stock. Just make sure that you do maybe throw in a couple other Granny Smith apples in there other than just the peels and the cores. It would give it a little bit nicer of a flavor. But you could just use it with peels and cores if you wanted to, but adding a little bit of extra apple in there would just give it a better flavor. One last thing to just keep in mind is homemade apple pectin stock is not necessarily as uniform in taste and behavior than commercial pectin is, but it still works just as wonderfully. Don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video, or share it with anyone else who you think might enjoy it. Consider subscribing to the channel so that we can spend more time together and that you don't miss future videos. But I just want to say thanks for stopping by today, and I'll see you next time.